Americans have done it again. According to the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, the African doesn't have the mental capacity to think for himself. According to Mr. Antony Blinken, all the challenges that we are going through as African people, we don't have the right to see it. What is happening in Congo, what is happening in Somalia, there is no African who can realize it, that something is wrong. For an African to come out and say that what is happening in Congo is wrong, what is happening in Somalia is wrong, then he must be influenced by somebody else. According to him, I want us to go and watch what he said about African Stream. As me and you know, African Stream is a platform that is giving voice for the people of Africa, that is having critical analysis of what is happening in our continent. But according to Antony Blinken, we as African people cannot have that kind of critical thinking to think of what is happening to us unless other people influence it. Let's watch what he said about African Stream, come back and analyze it. We will also hear a response from our brother from Nigeria as to the thinking behind what he said about African Stream. But first of all, let's watch what Antony Blinken said about African Stream, come back and analyze it.
Now, according to the outlet's website, African Stream is, and I quote, a pan-African digital media organization based exclusively on social media platforms, focusing on giving a voice to all Africans both at home and abroad. In reality, the only voice it gives is to Kremlin propagandists.
Yes, so as you can see or hear him, according to him, African Stream, as we all know, are a platform that is kind of like coming out with solutions to what is happening to us as African people. I have watched African Stream. I follow African Stream from not today. I've watched almost every video by African Stream.
Black ignorance is a mega billion-dollar industry. There were statistics that show that just with fake hair and fake nails in America, they make $7 billion a year out of black people. So it's black ignorance, it's a mega billion-dollar industry. Once you understand that part, that the things that we need to design them ourselves.
I have never seen any video that shows that African Stream is promoting the Crimea. I've never seen that there's somebody behind what is happening. So what is Antony Blinken telling us? That we cannot think for ourselves. This is serious as African people. To us, this is an insult to us. For him to come out and say that what African Stream is doing is being influenced by the Crimea. If it wasn't for Russia, we cannot think that what is happening in Congo is wrong. If not for other people, we cannot think that what is happening in Somalia is wrong. All the terrorism that is going on in Africa, that has been sponsored by them. For them, we don't have what it takes to think that something is not right for Africa. The richest continent in the world that has the poorest people in the world. For us, we don't have the right to think that something is not right, that something is wrong, that the richest continent in the world, people are crossing the Mediterranean Sea to travel to Europe. People are running away from the richest continent in the world. When African Stream has come out to try to provide a solution, try to ask us questions as to what is happening to us, then somebody must be behind that. Because for us as African people, we cannot think for ourselves. But I want us to also watch a response by our brother. The last time I talked about this brother, I said this brother deserves a journalism award from the African Union, because these are the kind of journalists that we need in Africa. Let's listen to his response, come back and continue with our analysis.
People are watching in Africa and around the world. David, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, I guess my first question for you here is, it seems like so much of this they've banned Africa Stream, RT, and they claim that Africa Stream is somehow Russian and connected to RT secretly through intelligence links or whatever. But we can get into that. But I think to me, the maybe underlying issue here of what the U.S. government has done in trying to restrict the operations of various Russian media and various independent media like Africa Stream is the assumption that somehow Africans in particular cannot think for themselves, and that the positions and feelings that people have all around the continent on whatever the issue may be, the war in Ukraine or the role of Russia and China in the world or whatever, is only happening because they're being secretly manipulated, which just seems massively paternalistic to me. But I wonder your thoughts on that question, David.
So I have two thoughts on that. The first is, I find that entire concept to be, in addition to being disgustingly racist, I find it incredibly offensive. Personally, I take it very personal because, so I work with African Stream. I know the amount of effort that we put into what we actually put out. I know the amount of fact checking we do. I know the amount of technical accomplishment it takes to actually put out a piece of content, right? Because we have a thing in our newsroom that if you wouldn't want to watch it, then you shouldn't put it out there, right? We put a lot of effort into what we do. And then to hear the US, I believe the number 5, was it number 6 citizen of the US, coming on air to call us by name and basically reduce all of our hard work to Russian. He didn't even say they're funded by Russia or funded by RT. He said they're secretly run by RT, with the inference being that these guys are too stupid to even put out any of this stuff, to create any of this stuff on their own. It can only be the Russians. And there's a very long history of this sort of, it's much more than just paternalistic thinking. There's a very long history of this incredibly boneheaded sort of thinking in the US. I personally trace it back as far back as the 19th century, where this fictitious ailment called drapetomania was invented, with the claim that any African wanting to be free was suffering from a mental illness, because as we well know, Africans have no human desire to be free. The natural position of an African is supposedly slavery. This happened again in 1930. This was at the peak of the Jim Crow era, at a time where Africans, both in the diaspora and on the continent, where I believe in the US, the term was 3/5 of the human being. In Africa, we weren't even classified as humans. In some parts of the continent, like in Southern Africa, Africans were classified as flora and fauna. And in a place like Nigeria, where I come from, Nigeria wasn't even classified as a country under occupation. It was classified as a corporate object owned by the Queen. We're ruled by something called the Royal Niger Trading Company. And in the midst of all that, Africans on both sides of the Atlantic started uniting to come up with some sort of Pan-Africanist thinking. And the US government said it's the Soviets that are behind it. In the 1960s, during the African independence era, which coincided with the civil rights movement, because they were both joined at the hip, it was the same thing. Martin Luther King is a Russian agent. Kwame Nkrumah is a Russian agent. Patrice Lumumba, Fred Hampton, you guys are all Russian agents. In 1985, the apartheid head of Prime Minister of South Africa claimed that blacks are happy in South Africa under apartheid. And the only blacks who aren't happy are those who have had Russian ideas pushed into their heads. So it's like we're in 2024 and this same thing is being rinsed again, that without the involvement of this Russian subversive funding or indoctrination or whatever, these group of people, black people, are just too fundamentally stupid to have any positions, any ideologies, any voices, any thoughts of their own. They can only do something when there's the hand of Vladimir puppeting them.
It's really incredible. It's so paternalistic and, like you said, race.
So that is the response by our brother. And there is history behind the thinking of Antony Blinken, because that is what they have been programmed to think about, we as African people. For them, we as melanated people cannot decide for ourselves. We don't know what is our right and our left. And he's right, because some people still support whatever they are doing to us as African people. We still have Africans who support what he is saying. It's very unfortunate that in this 21st century, Antony Blinken can come out and tell us that the amazing job that African Stream is doing is influenced by other people. The pains that we are going through as African people, we don't have the right to say that, no, this is painful. it has to be influenced by other people. Other people have to tell us that no, what is happening to us is not right before we can see that it's not right. How, like, what is the thinking? This is a serious insult to us as African people. And because he said this, YouTube has banned African stream. Facebook has banned African stream. Instagram has banned African stream. Because Anthony Blinken thinks that African stream is being sponsored by Russia. What an insult. So for them, Africa belongs to them. Black people belong to them. So for a black man to think, they have to first of all tell you how to think. But for you to come out as a black man and say, no, something is not right, something is wrong. How can the richest continent in the world have the poorest people in the world? How can the richest continent in the world cannot feed its people? Because this is the job that African stream is doing. Apart from that, I've watched different videos about African stream. I have never seen a video that shows that African stream is not doing everything it can to promote and empower our people as Africans.
To the girl in English class, what is funny? What is hilarious about my painful attempt to communicate in a language that is not even my own? See, this accent tells a story of survival. Tells how my mother tongue endured to this day, so I expect you treat my tongue with some respect. Every word, every syllable I utter comes from a riot within. My mouth is a babble between subconscious tongue, teeth, and vocal cord. So excuse you if my speech does not suit you. See, this speech comes from the slaughterhouse I call a mouth. See, my mouth is a battlefield. A clash of unyielding cultures, warring for dominance. See, my tongue is a traumatized survivor. Lost in this alien fluency. See, this accent is how I find my way home. How I say idikpi without biting my tongue. See, my tongue is forever at war with itself, forever fighting to decolonize itself, fighting to lose and regain itself all at the same time, so cut me some slack. I will not be ashamed nor refrain from saying my name, and no, I will not apologize for my mother's legacy, for there is no dignity in denying my identity. So to the girl in English class, it's about time you learn my own language.
Yes, these are the kind of videos that African stream I've seen from African stream. And yet, Anthony Blinken think that with everything that African stream is doing, somebody is behind it. So for because they have control over us, our media, almost 90% of our media is being controlled by them. So for a media platform to come out and start saying something that is contrary to what they are pushing on us, then somebody else must be behind that. If not, how dare you as an African to think that what is happening in Congo is wrong? According to Anthony Blinken, how dare you as an African to think that what is happening in Somalia is wrong? You have no right to think that what is happening in the Sahel is wrong as an African. So for you to think that, like, you need dignity as an African, they cannot understand. It's beyond their imagination as Americans to see that a black man is want to promote dignity for the Africans, as African stream is doing. Because I have watched African stream videos and I have never seen African stream promoting any saying things that shows that they are being sponsored by other people to promote their interests. All that African stream is promoting is the interest of the African and the dignity of Africa. And Anthony Blinken and the United States government have to realize that it is a new dawn for Africa. Whether you people like it or not, we will rise as African people. And you cannot stop us from rising. Because we are sick and tired of our people perishing in the Mediterranean Sea because of what you are doing in Africa. We are sick and tired of you people having control. You are kneeling on our necks and then you are telling us that we don't have the right to feel pains. Mr. Anthony Blinken, is that what you are telling us? That we don't have the right to feel pains? Even the animal in the jungle feel pains. Not to talk of we, the melanated people who are the origins of all of you. All of you came from us. I thank you very much for coming around. Please, if you appreciate what we are doing here in One Africa Mission, please don't hesitate to support us by sharing what we are doing. Please Support us. Let us all together fight, just as African Stream is doing. Let us all together fight for a united, better Africa. Because all this will stop if we unite the continent of Africa, so that the intellect, the brains of Africa will go to benefit our continent, our race. And the only way our resources, our human resources, our natural resources can benefit us as African people is by uniting the continent of Africa. Thank you very much for coming around.